All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ben Ezel, and I'm the project manager for the Long Island CMMI implementation. CMMI stands for Capability Maturity Model Integrated, best practices for executing projects. And the goal of this project is to apply those best practices to the stage gate process. You know, that stage gate process is our existing methodology for executing projects. It's a very robust process, very robust methodology, but as part of our continuing improvement program, we wanted to, again, continue our improvement by applying these best practices to the stage gate process. And so what we're going to end up with is the stage gate process, the SGP, as our foundation, and then we're going to layer on top of it the best practices from CMMI, excuse me, from CMMI, and we have a goal, a target of overlaying those, getting through the training, and actually implementing them for the project teams to utilize over the next couple of months. And then in October, we will have what's called an appraiser come in. This is an independent reviewer that will review our process changes that we made, and also review the project team's implementation of those processes to ensure that we have in fact aligned our process methodology with the CMMI best practices. And again, that's called an appraisal. And we'll have a person that's called a lead appraiser come in and perform that evaluation at the end of October. So we've, over the past couple of months, have made updates to the SGP processes for Long Island. And now we're, over the next couple of weeks, going to go through training of our project teams of key roles in our IT projects. And then once we complete the training, we'll roll these out to the project teams. They'll begin utilizing them. Now, this is focused on Long Island projects. The New Jersey projects are not yet adopting any changes to the SGP. So just wanted to make that clear that this is targeting the Long Island projects. And the other main point is that we're not overhauling the SGP. We're not retiring the SGP. We are literally taking the SGP processes that are currently being followed and layering on top of them enhancements or process best practices to align it with the CMMI. Today, we'll have a couple of presentations, one from Naren regarding the SGP process as it relates to controllers and schedulers. Today's target audience are controllers and schedulers. Hopefully you saw that from the meeting invitation. We'll also have our CMMI SME and the Cognizant project team manager who'll do a presentation for you to give you an overview of CMMI, what it is, and the changes that we've made to our process, applying those best practices. Now, I know that a lot of you, I think, are already following the SGP processes and are familiar with them. I think one thing we want to do to level set before we get started is to take an informal poll and see if we, in fact, need to cover the scheduler playbook and controller playbooks related to the process. If so, then Naren is with us to go through those decks with you. If the team feels that there are sufficiently familiar with the SGP, then we could go straight to the changes we're making for CMMI. So we have a large number of people on the call. If anyone feels that we need to go through the SGP playbooks for you guys, please unmute yourself and let us know. Don't be shy. Don't be embarrassed if you say you would like to go through the decks.
Hi, Ben. This is Nicole Johnson. I think for the purposes of the group here, it would be helpful to do it at least at a very high level. Don't have to go down into granular detail, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Okay, fair enough. That's why I wanted to ask. So thanks, Nicole. So Naren.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Good afternoon to all my friends here. I see every one of you. I know you guys. Good to see you guys again back on. So the question here is, right, the specific schedulers playbook and the controller playbooks you are very well familiar with. I know that you might have gone through the multiple training sessions Chris and Nicole has with you, navigating you with your activities, right? So I don't think reiterating or re-showing those playbooks will not be any use here. Let's get a step back and look at the SGP overall process. Some of you might have joined in those trainings, but now I want to take you the journey of the SGP process as such and see how that is going to be giving you the knowledge of what is the foundational layer that we adopted for PSEG Long Island CMMI initiative, and how the second layer of CMMI is coming on top of the foundational layer SGP, right? Some of these slides you might have seen already, but I'll just brush through them and give more time to Shiva to cover the CMMI related changes. Sounds good? Okay, so let's get started. You know the basic, the purpose of the playbooks, right? You know, you are familiar with the scheduler playbook and the controller playbook. Similarly, we have what is for the SGP, right? This gives you a broader perspective of the framework, what are the activities, how the project team should get engaged with the stage gate process, and how this is going to improve the overall project management perspective, right? You know, including the status reporting, managing the risk issues, decisions, change requests, schedule, and cost, right? The last two pieces are being the really important pieces. So how this whole framework, you know, engulfs the whole thing and then embraces the project management methods and techniques. So looking at the stage gate framework, you know that we basically introduced the SGP last year, around April 2021, in order to focus on standardizing the expectations of the project life cycles, deliverables, and improve on the estimation accuracy, both on effort and cost, right? So as you all are aware already, the stage gate explains itself. There's two words in that, stages and gates. So we have 7 stages for a project life cycle. The inception of the project starts with the create concept, ends with the post-deployment completion. We have the gates that every time when a project is going through the gate, it has to go through some checkpoints, see the compliance of all the deliverables of the previous stage have been properly reviewed and approved so that they can move to the next stage. So when you're reading it, you can see that on the top of the box will be showing you the objective of that stage. And then in the swim lanes across will be showing you the tasks that needed to be addressed in that vertical. Let's say, for example, the project initiation, you know, I'm showing you the waterfall project right now. So if you look at it, these 7 the stages and 7 gates. But if a project is in project initiation, look at the vertical, go through the tasks that are there. So the project manager or the project team, which consists of the schedulers, controllers, technical team, testers, etc., they need to look at all these tasks and say, hey, is it applicable right now? And if yes, what template we have to use? And what are the reviewers and approvers? So where do we store these documents, etc. Right? Because when you come to gate 3, the EPMO team is going to ask you about all those deliverables and the compliance with that. Okay. So to the knowledge of the teams, schedulers, and controllers, you should be looking at the project team coordination as an overall perspective and see what activities people need to coordinate and see that those are met, right? So similarly, you have the more swim lanes starting from the CSRC, the cybersecurity team, testing COE, integration COE, etc. Then when we go to the agile projects, so more or less everything remains the same except these 3 stages, right? Where you see that it becomes an iterative process, the plan, sprint, release, and the refine. As most of you are aware of an agile methodology is to release or change, make the changes into production on a smaller chunks, right? Not like in waterfall, there is a big bang approach. All requirements are completed. The whole thing is moved in one shot, whereas agile, you move them in smaller chunks. So you plan for certain user stories, you execute them, you test it out, and then demo it to the line of business or your sponsors. They are happy, move it into production. Then come back to the planning stage, pick up some more user stories and run with them. So it is called basically a sprint and then a release. Release is basically where you are moving the changes to the production environment, okay? So one release may have multiple sprints, but every time when you are moving changes to production, a release has to happen with all the documentation that is required to go into production, okay? All those things are specified in this refine stage. So moving on to the other stages, you can the same thing customized for the other swim lanes too, okay? We are enhancing the same deck with the hybrid also. So a hybrid methodology is where you're adopting both waterfall and the agile methodologies at appropriate stages, okay? I'll have a slide where I can show you where that comes up, right? So looking at the deliverable templates, these templates are all existing in EPMO SharePoint site, and most of the templates are already adopted on the New Jersey projects. But now the Long Island projects are gearing up to adopt these templates, okay? So moving on to the methodology, again, we have given the freedom for the project teams to work with the business to understand what are the requirements, what is the scope of the project, and what need to be done for the delivering of the project, what methodology should be used, right? Is it better to deliver it as a waterfall project or as an agile project? Because one size does not fit everybody. So we want you to customize it for your own project. So then same way, if the project is huge and has a lot of visibility, a lot of regulatory requirements, it goes into one particular category. If it is a small project, very routine and basic activities are being done, then it comes into a different category. So accordingly, you customized your templates and the documents that can be prepared, reviewed, and approved. Okay. So looking at that, so you will have this tailoring matrix. So look at the projects which are like $1 million and above to start with, then categorize them and go down these parameters. I have a project which is $1 million, good. Then how risky it is. Is it high risk project or a low risk project? Then visibility, is it highly visible to the senior leadership team or to the regulatory authorities or to the cybersecurity team, or it is like a routine thing, though it is costing $1 million and above, is it a regular upgrade process? And also the financial management. You should look at whether these have to be closely monitored, especially the O&M projects need to be very closely monitored. So we need to understand now there is a lot more focus on the financially managed projects. So you can see different categories here. A project more than $1 million, between $250 to $1 million, and less than $250,000 as a third category. The services are taken into a different category because we just use this for small activities. Like I'm moving a Wi-Fi from one corner to the other corner of the building, cost me $2,000, $3,000. We don't need to produce all these project artifacts. We go with much simpler deliverables there. This is the criteria that you use to waterfall and agile. If your criteria is changing requirements, very frequently requirements are changing, or the business is not clear in their business requirements early in the game, then you go for agile methodology. So you can refine them as you go by. So go through these parameters, you will understand why certain parameters are more amicable to the waterfall than agile. Here is the picture of the three methodologies that we allow in PSAG-IT. Waterfall is a straight approach. Iterative methodology is a halfway through, that you go through the initial stage as waterfall, then suddenly switch to a iterative methodology, right? But it is not like really agile methodology where you have user stories. Whereas in hybrid methodology, you still will follow the requirements concept. You have requirements, you design them, you test them out, and then you can keep building more and more of these, the requirements. So either you may test all of them in one shot, or you may be testing in smaller phases and move them out, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's slightly different from the agile methodology where you have user stories, which are the lowest level or the detailed requirements. We call that as user story. You identify user story, you identify the acceptance criteria, prioritize it, and then start working on them. Then the next one will be explaining you what do we do regarding the tailoring process and the categories that I was talking to you in the previous slides. So this is where you will identify what deliverables or the templates are required to be prepared, reviewed, and approved in a particular category of the project. As you see, anything that is more than $1 million, everything is mandated. You need to follow all these deliverables. If it is a medium size, which is $250K to $1 million, certain things are relaxed. Then for $250K, less than $250,000 projects, you have many relaxations. For infrastructure services and the financial placeholders, like I said, these are very basic and fundamentally very low cost activities that we do. You have a lot more relaxation. Okay. So now the question is, having understood what is SGP, how the stages and the gates and all these things work, but how do we monitor it? How do we measure your maturity or adoption of the SGP process? This is called the stage gate scorecard. Some of you are familiar with these scorecards already because I interacted with you guys on that. So this is a scorecard that you present at every gate, okay? So when you present at the gate, you have to basically prepare a template which consists of all the deliverables and the tasks of a particular stage. You provide the details that you have completed that, provide the proof of completion as a link or as a document there, and then submit this scorecard to EPMO team. Then the ops team will scrutinize that, will discuss with you if you miss any data, or if you want more details. Once we are happy with the way the details have been presented, we approve for you to move to the next stage. Okay. As of today, all this is manual. Okay. We are not mandating on a system. But a time may come when we start mandating things on the system, so better be prepared. Talk to your project managers, talk to your project teams and say, hey, we have a milestone coming up. Did you complete all these activities? If you have not done it, what is the impact of it? Shall we shift the dates? or shall we, work on it and submit the scorecards, etc. Okay. So the scorecard, as some of you might know, that it is an Excel file which contains details like this, right? You have multiple tabs. Each tab represents the stage. So if you are moving from, let us say, from initial design to design, so you click the development, the initial design tab, look at the tasks. The tasks may appear like this. So you complete those tasks, put the status as approved or not approved or not applicable, and then provide the proof of completion and submit it out. If you feel that something is not applicable, you should put a comment saying that why it is not applicable. Maybe your project is a small project, less than 250K. So put the comment there, according to my tailoring matrix, I don't need to present or do this activity. And that's why we are putting it as NA. That's okay, as long as we understand the reasoning behind why you have selected that option. Once all these things are completed, when you submit it, like I said, we will review it. We will approve that you have completed all the tasks for that particular stage. You are good to go through that gate to the next stage. Okay. So this is the overall picture. Now, what is SGP? How the stages and the gates work? What is the project categorization? How do you work with the matrix? And then how do you finally present your work to EPMO ops team so that we validate and work with you to see that you can move to the next stage? Okay. Any questions on this section before I hand it over to Shiva to continue? Okay, that's good. So this is where we transition to the next layer, right? You understood the basic layer. And now the next layer that is coming on top of it is what changes are done to what templates based on the CMMI guidelines. That's what Shiva is going to take you through. Okay, Shiva, yours.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Naresh. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, sure. Okay, so thanks, Naren, for the nice introduction on the stage gate process. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siva Raburi. I'm part of CMY team. I'm from Cognizant. I'll take next 45-50 minutes just to walk you through the changes we have incorporated to the stage gate process to be compliant with CMMI, right? So that is what is the main focus for this session. But before I jump in, I wanted to spend some time to explain, why do we need to focus so much on process? That's one thing I want to cover. And also, we are talking so much about CMMI. I just want to spend like a minute or two just to explain what it is all about. Okay, what value does it bring to us, right? So that I'll do that also. And once I, take you to those two topics, the why process is important and what is CMMI, then we will get into the actual changes we made to the existing process, the stage gate process, right? In terms of estimation, in terms of project planning and tracking. I'm sure you have a very, big role to play as a schedulers and controllers. Then also, the risk and opportunity and the peer review. So those are the 4 or 5 topics I will be walking you through in terms of what changes we made to the existing stage gate process. Okay. With that, let me move to the next slide here. Okay, I'm sure you might have seen this or heard this phrase before, right? The quality of the product, it could be software, it could be hardware, whatever we are, designing and developing, right? The quality of that product is largely determined by the quality of the process that is used to develop and maintain. It is a famous quote which came from Watts Humphrey. Watts Humphrey is one of the quality gurus, right? So if you step back and look at this one, it's actually what he mentioned is actually very, very true, because sometimes we feel that, okay, we have some great people, with us and we can do miracles. But unfortunately, even when we have the, greatest minds together, we may not be able to perform at our best when the process, is not understood or not being operated, the way it is supposed to be, right? So that's the reason why we need to make sure that the process which we are following is consistent, right? It's very, for, we have a process for everything. Let's take if you are making a pasta, there is a process, right? How much water we need to use, how much time we need to boil, right? How much pasta, right? It's a process, right? So it's the same thing. Even when you're designing and developing IT applications, right? We need to have a process so that now we can make sure that the output is quality one, and also we can bring consistency. If you have a process, right? If you document, okay, boil the water for certain time, put so much of pasta sauce, right? So if you quantify, measure it, and write it down, and if everybody is following the same thing, the output would be much more consistent, right? The same thing, we are trying to do the same thing. As we are designing and developing IT applications, we wanted to standardize the process, right? That way, even whether the project 1 or project A is doing or project B is doing, we always will be delivering the quality output. That's the reason why the process is very, 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 very important. Okay, but how do we quantify the process? How do we qualify the process? How do I know whether which process is good, right? So for that, so we have something called CMMI. CMMI is a model, okay, which is a maturity model, which is used as an yardstick against we can measure the maturity of an organization. Okay, so that is the beauty, right? You may say at PSEG Long Island, we have a greatest process. Hey, how do we know whether what we have is good or great, right? So if you have a way to measure, whether it is good or bad, then, it's always good, right? Now we can claim, right? If you don't measure it, you don't know where we are. So that's the reason why we are actually using CMMI as a best practice, right? These are the collection of best practices, right? We are using this to measure to see where we stand. Where is our process maturity? How good our processes are. Okay, so is an yardstick against which a maturity of an organization, a process, maturity can be measured. Okay, so CMMI is nothing but it's a collection of best practices. It tells us what to do. Okay, it will never tells us how to do or who should do it, because every organization is different. Right? Every company is different. Some could be large multi-billion-dollar companies. Some could be very small companies, right? So we cannot impose the requirement, a particular role should do it, or this how we should be doing it. So we cannot have a very, very prescriptive. So that's the reason why the CMMI model, what they have done is, so they have actually put together all the best practices together and tells them what we need to do rather than how we should do it or who should do it. That way, it is abstracted away from the details, right? So that anybody can implement CMMI. Okay, so that's about CMMI. So what would be the benefits, right? Now, if you implement CMMI, right? I've been doing this for last 23, 24 years, right? I've seen companies made a lot of improvements, a significant improvements to their quality or a cost or a schedule performance by adopting the CMMI model. Okay, so that is the benefit. Okay, as we are at PSEG Long Island, we do have some issues in terms of quality or a delivery, right? So those things will be improved by adopting the CMMI model. Okay, so there are 5 maturity levels. I'm sure you might have heard about that many times, right? So there are 5 maturity levels in CMMI. As I told you, it's an yardstick, right? So and each level builds on top of each other. Okay, so that means if some company wants to be at level 2, that means they need to implement all the requirements which are at level 1. Similarly, if the company wants to be at level 3, they need to implement all the requirements which are there at level 1, and also the requirement which are there at level 2, plus the requirement which are there on level 3. That's how the maturity builds on top of each other. Okay, so the higher the level, that means that indicates that the maturity of the process is higher. Okay, so currently we are aiming for maturity level 3 at PSEG LI, right? We are not aiming for level 5. We are only aiming for level 3. Okay, so what that means is, so as you can see, I don't know whether you can read the text here. It's called defined level. Okay, what that means is, so we need to define the process at the PSEG LI level. Sorry. Right? So then all the projects that are being executed at PSEG LI adopt the same process. right? But you are allowed to do some tailoring based on the project size or a project type, but you are essentially taking what is available at the PSCGLI, the process, the stage gate process, right? And we are trying to adapt to our project needs. That is what is required. That's the reason it's called defined. We need to have a defined process at the organization level. So for that reason, what we did was we took the existing, the stage gate process, right? And we have revised it to incorporate the requirement of the CMMI. As I told you, CMMI is a collection of best practices, right? So we took those best practices, we have revised the existing stage gate process, and we have established a process at the PSCGLI level. Now the next step is to make sure that now we train everybody so that now we can start adopt them. Okay, so in CMMI, right, there are total 20 practice areas. So I just wanted to, I'll take a minute to explain this one, right? So, don't get confused with, the practice area. Practice area is nothing but it's just a, grouping of best practices. For example, if you take a very first one, requirement development and management, right? So what they did was, so they took all the best practices that we need to follow when you are collecting and documenting and analyzing the requirements for a given project or a product. So they put them, all of them together, and they categorize that as requirement development and management. Similarly, we have one for risk management, there's one for planning, one for estimating, like for every activity or major area. So they just said, okay, what are the best practices we should be following for this particular activity, and they just put all of them together. That's it. Okay. There are total practice areas or categories, what we call them, right? So right now we are not implementing all 20. We are only implementing 14 out of 20. The one which are highlighted in red is what we are trying to focus on for the year 2022. Okay, so that is our goal. So so what we did so far, right? So when we started in May of this year, right, now the Cognizant team, we came in and we did a quick assessment. Okay, we looked at your existing stage gate process. We took that. Then we looked at, okay, hey, what are the CMMI requirement and the current your existing stage gate process? Does it, address all the best practices we have at CMMI? We did an assessment, and we have interviewed, many of you. I don't know whether I talked to, anybody on this call now, but definitely we spoke to, like 7 or 8 different project teams just to understand how the things are being done, so that we can identify what are the gaps. Okay, so that is what we have done. The assessment phase is completed. Now we are in the transformation phase. What it means is, so we know that at the assessment phase, we kind of identified what all the gaps are, right? So we went back and we have updated your existing stage gate process. That particular activity was completed. Okay, that was done. We published our process on July 15th. We completed the process. Now we are actually in the enablement phase. So where we are doing the training, because we can't just update the process and expect miracles to happen. No, right? So we need to make sure that people who are actual practitioners, actual users of the process, they understand what needs to be done. So that is the reason why you are in this session today. We wanted to make you aware, hey, what all the new requirements or what are the process requirements we have included into the into the stage gate process, so that you can go back and start adopting those requirements in your respective projects. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. That's the reason why we are here. If anybody is not clear, why you are involved in this training, right? We wanted to make sure that you understand these process changes we have incorporated. Okay, again, so this session is for, we scheduled it for 1.5 hours, right? It's, so much information to, consume, but, we are not trying to, push you into the river and then I expect you to swim. No, we are there with you. Okay, we will be there even after this session. We will be providing implementation support, right? As you are adopting these updated process on a project, you may have so many questions, clarifications required. We will be there. Okay, we are there, And as you can see here, what we did was, so we are doing sessions, separate sessions for project managers and PMs. We have done a session yesterday. Right now we are doing it for schedulers and controllers, right? So we will be training every team, business analysts, the architects, the test leads, the procurement team, right? So then we will also have some kind of a regular daily office hours call or a help desk call from 10 to 12 every day, so that as you're implementing, if you have any questions, you can join the call and ask. It's not that you need to join every day 2 hours. No, only when if you have a question clarification required, as you're implementing the process, please jump into the call, ask the question, and you can get the clarifications as required. And in addition to that, we will also be doing a lot of hand holding or workshops. Okay, so if somebody has any questions, okay, how do I fill this document, what goes into the section, we will be there. Okay, so that is the the point I'm trying to make here is, you are not in this alone. We are up together, and we will be there to help you make sure you understand what needs to be done, you complete, so that we are successful. Okay, so we spent a lot of time to talk about the stage gate process and the update, the updates we have made to make it compliant with level 3, right? So this is where all these updated processes have been posted. Okay, so I'll just take a quick second to just to show you this is how it looks. So there is a new SharePoint page has been created for the PSCG Long Island. Again, remember this particular project or CMM implementation, we are only focusing for the Long Island projects only at this point of time. Okay, to be precise, it's a Long Island, IT development projects. That is what we are focusing on. Okay, so, and I will be walking you through, this is how it looks, right? So we have all the processes updated. As you can see here, we have process here. I'll spend some time to go through these, but this is where you find all the updated process. Okay, so let's get into the actual topic now. So the next 40 minutes or so, I'll be talking about the estimation, the project planning, monitoring, risk management, and peer reviews, right? So I just want to give a quick context here, right? So before we start any project, the first thing we have to do is to establish the estimates, right? Because we need to understand, hey, what is the scope? How long it is going to take, and how many people do I need? You need to estimate something. It's not that we have unlimited resources, right? We need to estimate it. We need to understand the scope first. Then we need to estimate how long it is going to take, how many people you need, what is the duration, blah blah blah. Then you need to present it to the project manager, the senior management, or a project steering committee. Once you get approval to your estimates, then you actually develop a project execution plan. Okay, or the project plan, right? That includes your project execution plan, your schedule, your budget, and everything you put together, all of them together, right? Then we need to review that plan. That includes your schedule, right? Includes your budget, right? So we need to put all of them together. We need to review and obtain commitment, right? Because the project is not done by one person, it's a team effort, right? We need to make sure that all the relevant stakeholders review it and commit to it, so that we work as a team, so that we can deliver it. Okay, again, having a plan is not going to solve the problem, right? So we need to make sure that we use this plan to track it, to monitor, right? So that is where you as a scheduler or a controller, you play a very, 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 very important role, right? So you wanted to make sure, okay, what is the planned schedule, planned completion date? What is the actual completion date? Hey, how much money we plan to complete so far? Right? How much we spent? What is the delay? Are we, you need to, you play a very, very important role to in monitoring and tracking the project and raising red flags as required to bring the project on track, as needed, right? So this is just a quick high-level context diagram. Now, what I will be doing is I will be taking some time to explain, estimation, the planning, monitoring, and control. So each area I will take and what all the process changes we have incorporated. Okay, I'll start with the estimation. So I don't know how many of you are involved in estimation, project estimation, practice area, project estimation activities. But one thing is very, very important, right? We need to follow some kind of a systematic approach when we are estimating the either effort or a schedule or a duration, right? Sometimes people ask, hey, how much time do you need or how long it's going to take? We simply say something, out of a thin air, we'll just pull up some number and do it. Then it's not going to be accurate, right? So if you follow, if you follow some systematic methodology to understand, okay, what do I need to do? And what does my past project performance says how long it's going to take? Use that historical data to come up with your numbers, either hours labor estimation or your cost estimation or your duration, right? That way, there is a high confidence in your estimations what you're getting, right? The purpose of estimation is to estimate the size, effort, duration, and the cost and the resources needed to develop and deliver the solution. Okay, I don't know whether you caught this words, the size, very, very, very important, right? So the CMMI model is, as I told you, it's a collection of best practices, right? It emphasizes on the size. Okay, so I always give a simple example, right? I live in Washington, D.C. area, and if somebody asks me, how long it is going to take me from, drive from here to New York, right? So I simply, I'm sure, what comes to your mind? Maybe somebody can volunteer. But if somebody says, hey, how long it takes to drive from, if you are in New Jersey or New York, from there to Washington, D.C., if somebody asks, what comes to your mind? Can anybody volunteer there? Nicole, maybe you're there. I'll pick on you. I'm sorry. So what comes to you, Nicole?
So what was your question? I'm sorry.
I'm just asking, right? If somebody comes and asks you, if you're going from place A to place B, okay, how long it is going to take? What comes to your mind?
If someone asked me when I'm sorry, because you were.
If you're traveling, if you're driving from Washington, D.C. to New York, right? If somebody said how long it is going to take, how many hours it's going to take, what comes to your mind?
I would probably equate mileage, and duration, how many miles is it going to take and how long does it take me to complete a mile? And that's going to give me an estimation of how many hours it would take.
Sure, right? Exactly, right? So that's exactly what is the number of miles is considered as a size. Right. So if you equate the same to your software development, right, or application development, we need to do the same. Okay, you need to estimate, okay, how many pages do I need to develop, or how many functions do I need to develop, or how many lines of code I need to write? Because if you know what is the size, then you can come up with an effort which is much more realistic, right? So that is the reason why the CMMI model emphasizes to determine the size first. Size could be anything. It could be number of pages, number of modules, number of requirements. It could be even complexity. Our lines of code, function points, feature points, story points, right? So very, very, very important. That is one thing which we are not currently doing, but we will be required to do according to CMMI best practice. Okay. So before we do the estimation, the very first thing what we need to understand is to develop the work, develop the scope of the work, right? We need to understand, okay, what do I need to do to complete this project? What is involved in this, right? So we need to understand the requirements and we need to develop a work breakdown structure. Okay. So that's the very first thing we need to do. Okay. Once you understand the scope, if you understand your work breakdown structure, the second thing what we need to do is to estimate the size. Again, Nicole, as I said, okay, the number of miles in the example we were talking a few minutes back, right? So same thing, what is the size? We need to determine the size first. Okay, So currently we are not doing it at at PSCG, both at New Jersey as well as in Long Island, right? We are not doing it, but that's one thing which we are currently introducing at Long Island to estimate the size based on the risk and complexity factors. Okay, so once we do that, right, using the data, then we are going to derive the hours, hours required based on the size. We are going to derive, what is the labor hours, what will be the outsourced, third-party hours required, right? So then we also come up with a duration and the cost, right, for the project. So if you use your size as the basis for your estimation, what happens is your confidence in your estimates, what you're providing for labor hours or the cost or the duration, will be much more accurate. That is the reason why we are required to estimate the size. And at the same time, the CMMI model also says that now we need to use the historical data. Again, Nicole, in the example, right now you said, okay, you need to consider the number of miles, but you will also consider, historical data. Let's take, if you are going at a, peak traffic hours, that, okay, there will be a lot of traffic, maybe you have done that, maybe, you looked at the, your past experience. Okay, in the past, you started at 5 o'clock in the evening, there's a lot of traffic, it took you 4 hours, right? You're using your historical data when you are providing your estimations, right? It's the same thing. We need to apply the same principles even for, when we are estimating for the IT projects also. Okay, so these are all the 4 different important requirements that we need to implement. Okay, so what we did was to address these requirements. So we have actually, updated the existing process. In some cases we have actually created new. In some cases we have updated. Okay, so what we did for this practice or this process. Okay, so if you see here, for estimation, right now these are the key elements which we need to do. And as I mentioned, we need to develop the WBS, develop the size, using the size, derive the effort and cost, use the historical data. And also, once everything is done, you need to make sure your project steering committee reviews and approves your effort, cost, and all that. Okay, so now we have actually to incorporate all the things I mentioned. Right now, you need to have a documented process, right? So we have actually created, we didn't have any process currently existed as a part of the stage gate process. That's the reason why we have actually created a process called estimation process, which is new. Okay, and we also took a cost estimator template. I don't know how many of you have used this, because there is a cost estimated Excel-based template that is existing as a part of the stage gate process. We took that, okay, and we have updated to incorporate the requirements, some of the missing elements. As I told you, the size estimation was missing, right? So we have incorporated your existing cost estimated template to capture the size, and we have updated that. Okay, so both this process as well as the templates, those are posted on the SharePoint which I was talking. Okay, so if you look at here, this is the estimation process. I'm not going to open it, but you can see here, right? So I want you to, after this training, I want you to go back, make sure that you have access to this site, open the process document, familiarize yourself. And if you have any questions, we have, you can reach me or you can reach Ben. And we also have a couple of other, team members from Cognizant who are supporting this, like Mark, who is also on the call today, Mark Kai. And we have Ilmin Bitoka is another person, Ashish Ashish Tiwari is another person. So you can reach any one of us to get clarifications. Okay. Similarly, if you go to the templates, right? There is another folder for tools and templates. If you go to the templates, okay. So if I go to the cost estimated template, okay, so is there. Okay, I want you to open the document, familiarize yourself. Again, so I've actually included the hyperlink in this. So if you click on it, if you're connected to the PSCG network, it will open the document for you. You don't even need to go to that, to the site and browse through. I've embedded the links there. So any questions on this? Does it make sense what we are adding to this process? Any quick feedback here? Okay. The next topic I want to cover is the planning. Okay, now once you have your estimations, right? You have your size estimation, your effort estimation, you have your budget and cost, or you have the cost. Now the second thing we need to do is to develop plans. Okay, because you need to have plan. You need to budget things. You need to have schedule. You need to have how many resources you need. Otherwise, we will not, we don't know, we will not have any control, right? So for that reason, we need to, once you have your initial estimations, you need to transform that into some planning elements. Okay, so what do we need to do? So again, I'm going to this slide here. There are some key requirements. The first thing we need to do is to develop budget and the schedule. Okay, maybe I'll start with the schedule first. Okay, so once you have the estimated effort and cost, right, we need to develop a project schedule in P6. That's the tool we are using currently. But make sure that all the tasks are listed in the schedule, because we don't want to have like a very there are some best practices how to develop a detailed project schedule. Right now, you don't want to have a task which are like 1,000 hours, right? Typically, ideally you want to have tasks no less than 8 hours, but at the same time no greater than 40 hours. Okay, if I have a task which is like 500 hours, right, you don't know whether you are on track or off track. It takes so long. But if you have if you split the task in such a way that they are no longer than, so no less than 8 hours or no greater than 40 hours, right? Within a week, whether we are completing the task or whether we are delayed. Is there a delay? You can easily determine that. So there are some scheduling best practices. I'm sure some of you are certified PMP, or you might have done some Microsoft, the scheduling certifications. I'm sure you might have learned all those best practices there, right? So make sure that now you are going to the level of details that makes sense. Then the second thing, we wanted to make sure that now you assign a person responsible. Okay, right? So for every task, we need to make sure that you assign a person. Okay, otherwise we don't know who is working on it. And also, if you assign a person, it makes sense for us to do some resource loading. If you don't assign a resource name, you don't know whether people are overloaded or underloaded or whatever, right? So for that very reason, you need to make sure that your P6 schedule has every task on your schedule has a, except the milestones. So every task has a person name assigned, not the generic names like a resource 1, resource 2, but rather the named resource. Okay, and also make sure that there are some dependencies. Okay, again, if you don't, I've definitely been working with Elandre for some of the schedule for some of my project schedule itself, right? We need to make sure that you have predecessors and successors identified, right? Otherwise, if you don't have the dependencies identified, sometimes it's very difficult to track the project. Okay, does it make sense? What I'm saying? I don't know how many of you are doing all these in your current existing schedules as you're developing, but make sure that if you are not doing it, make sure that go back and make sure that your tasks are not greater than 40 hours. If any of your tasks on your schedule which is greater than 40 hours, make sure you try to split it into subtasks there. And also don't go to a task which are like less than 8 hours. That we don't want that level of granularity. Also, that's too much work, right? So you need to balance it. Any greater than 8 hours, but less than 40 hours. That's the thumb rule there. Okay. Then the
disconnect from most groups is that currently we don't fully put an alignment between the schedule and the cost. So that's a little bit of a disconnect that we have that we're working to align.
Okay, that's very good feedback. Yeah. Okay, the next one is controllers, right? You are also on the call, right? So consider labor cost and outside services and material cost and develop a month-wise budget, right? You're already doing this in your Excel cost estimated template, right? So how much, because if you say you need a $1 million, you don't need that $1 million on day one, right? You need it over a period of time. When do you need it? Do you need it in Q1, or quarter 1, quarter 2, or quarter 3, or month January, February? You need to know that visibility so that we can plan our finances accordingly. Okay, so that I believe, in your cost estimated template, the existing template itself, you have that provision, and I remember you guys are doing that. So that's a good thing. The next thing is, it's not that the schedule and the budget, it's not static in nature. Keeps because planning is a planning, right? So we always estimates are guesstimates. Somebody used to say that, right? So it's always a guesstimate, right? Now we are with all assumptions and constraints we put together, right? But sometimes our assumptions can go wrong. Things take longer, right? Or maybe we may be able to complete things sooner. Then we need to update the schedules and the budget as and when there are any changes. Okay. Then the next thing is mostly project manager, right? So they need to develop a project management plan. Okay. Again, most of the projects, they do have a PEP, okay, project execution plan. What is PEP? Right? It's our strategy document. Okay. How are we going to execute the project? You document that. Okay. So that way it's spelled out. Okay. This is how we are going to execute this project. Right. So even anybody on the project team, if they open the document, go through that, they know, what we are doing, why we are doing. Okay. Then once this project plan is done and the scheduling is done, we need to make sure that there is a consistency among the plan, because especially at PSEGLI, right now there are a lot of moving pieces because we work with multiple vendors, right? So we need to make sure that vendors have their own plans, PSEG have their own plans. We have the testing team, test center of competency, right? So we need to make sure that whether all these plans, everybody have their own plans. So we need to make sure whether all these plans are aligned or not. That is very, very important. We need to review your project schedule, project dependencies, and make sure that they are aligned. Okay. Then the last thing I wanted you to be, again, very, very important for project schedulers. Okay. Make sure that you review your schedule with the project team before you baseline them in your P6. Review them, okay, and reconcile. Sometimes what happens is you may have a overloaded resources or underutilized resources, right? Now sometimes we may have to adjust the schedule, review the schedule, and reconcile the resources, right? Once that is done, you make sure that everybody commits to it. Typically this is done as a part of project harmonization meetings. So some companies they call it as a harmonization meetings, right? So they invite a meeting with all the key stakeholders. They present the schedule, high level schedule, and everybody gives a thumbs up. Or it can also be done as a part of a project kickoff meeting also. Does it make sense? Are we asking anything which is out of ordinary here? It's very, very, very basic things, right? We need to have a schedule. We need to make sure that schedule gets reviewed, make sure that resources are aligned or level loaded, and make sure that the schedule is reviewed and approved or provided commitment is obtained from the project people. Nothing out of ordinary here. Any questions, comments on this? Okay. Moving on to the next topic again, this one, as I told you, the same thing here. This is for planning. We have identified what are the key elements which we need to do so that it's very, very clear for you guys. Then we have also hyperlinked the process. Again, in the previous one, we had developed an estimation process, right? For this, we have actually developed a process called project planning and tracking process. Okay, so if I go to playbook on processes, so there is a process called project planning and tracking. Okay, how do we plan for a project and how do we track it? Okay, so all those requirements are outlined in this document. So I encourage you to open the document, go through that, familiarize yourself, because you have a role to play in that. Similarly, we have updated the project execution plan template. We have an existing template, so we took that. There are some missing sections there, so we have updated that. And the next document is the application lifecycle guidelines. Okay, so when Naren walked us through, what are the various life cycle models available for us to use at PSEG, right? The waterfall, agile, and hybrid, right? So we have also provided some kind of guidance, what life cycle to be adopted in what scenarios, right? Okay, that particular information is included in this one. And the last item on this one was the tailoring guidelines. Okay, again, every project is different. We cannot impose a lot of requirements on project. Now we don't want to make it bureaucratic process, right? So depending upon the size, depending upon the type of the project, you are allowed to do some tailorings, and those tailorings are documented in this, right? So if you are tailoring according to the approved tailoring guidelines outlined here, you don't need a special approval. But if you are trying to tailor things which are outside of approved tailoring guideline, you need to get an approval from the EPMO team. Okay, please remember that. Okay, if somebody says, okay, I don't want to develop a detailed project since P6, that's not allowed, because that's not what is approved tailoring guideline. Whether you are less than 250K or greater than 1 million project, every project should have a P6 schedule, right? So if somebody wants to say, I don't want to do project schedule, they need to provide a proper justification why they don't want to do it and get an approval from the EPMO. Okay, so that's about the planning. Next, I wanted to take quickly on the project monitoring and control. Okay, so again, right, once if we have a plan ready, the next thing is we need to monitor it from time to time to see whether we are on track or off track. It's pretty straightforward. I'm sure schedulers and controllers, you have a very, very, very important role to play, especially in the monitoring and control, right? We need to monitor and track your effort, your schedule, your budget, your resources. Everything needs to be tracked, because if you don't track it, you don't know where we are. Okay, so if I'll go to this one, right? So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to explain is track the effort, the schedule, and the budget. Okay, hey, how many hours we plan, right? In your estimation, you said, okay, you need so many hours, labor hours, right? Okay. How many hours we actually spent? Did we spend more? Did we spend less? Or whatever it is, right? So again, it's not at the end of the project. You need to monitor the effort on a regular basis. Let's take you have estimated you need 10,000 hours to labor hours you need to complete the project. So far you have consumed 2,000, but you need to ask the project how many more hours you need to complete the remaining work. Estimated completion. I'm sure you all are familiar with that, right? So on a regular basis, we need to monitor the plan versus actual effort, the plan versus actual schedule, and also the plan versus actual cost and budget. And you need to monitor it. Okay, and you play a role, very, very important role here. Then in addition to these planning parameters, we also need to make sure that whether the critical dependencies are getting done, other planning elements. Are we getting all the required hardware, software, all the key stakeholders are getting involved? That also needs to be monitored on a regular basis. Okay, then the very important thing is take corrective actions. Okay, again, planning is a planning, right? Sometimes we plan and sometimes project may not go according to the plan. Sometimes there will be some deviations, right? Then we need to take some corrective actions in case of any deviation, so that we can bring the project on track. Okay, for example, you plan to complete a task in 100 hours, you end up taking 101 hours. Hey, I'm not expecting you to sit there and do a root cause analysis why you spent an hour more. No, it doesn't make sense. It's not worthwhile. But you need to decide what is considered as significant. Okay, so let's take I know anything greater than 15%. Okay, you say, then what we can do is you monitor it. If you think that okay, our variation, what we plan versus what we spend so far is greater than 15%, then you pull the team together, you do some root cause analysis, why it happened, what can we do, and all that. Okay, and we also need to document and track the issues. Okay, as we are tracking the project, I'm sure there will be a lot of issues that pop up, right? Again, don't discuss and lose track of them. Document them. Make sure there is a person assigned for each issue, and we assign a due date and we track them to closure. That way, we don't lose track of those. Okay, so that's about monitoring and tracking, monitoring and control. Again, I've clearly mentioned, what all the things we need to do. And also we have highlighted, what all the process changes. The only thing which I wanted to, quickly spend some time is the status review checklist. Okay, again, as I mentioned, right now, we need to track so many things. We need to track effort, the schedule, the budget, the stakeholders, training needs, the dependencies, right? So there's a set of agenda that needs to be reviewed on a regular basis, right? So what we did is, we developed a status review checklist that can be used as an agenda item when you are having a team review meetings. Okay, I'm not sure how frequently you have your status reviews with the project team, but as and when you have it, make sure that now you open the status review checklist, then cover each and every item on that list, so that now we are not missing on anything. Okay, so that's the last item on this. So let's quickly move on to the risk and opportunity management. Okay, this is very, very important. Not as a scheduler and as a controller, but as a project team, you have a role to play in identifying both risks as well as opportunities that impacts the project, right? So we need to identify, analyze potential risks or the opportunities. Okay, so risks are the one which, when they realize, right? So those that impacts the project negatively, whereas opportunities, when they get realized, those impacts the project in a positive impact. Okay, so both risks as well as the opportunities needs to be documented, and we need to analyze them, and we need to track them to closure. Okay, so what do we need to do? Very first thing, right? Identify and categorize the risks and opportunities. Okay, so we need to have as a part of your team meetings, right? As a part of your project initiation, you call for a meeting, all the developers, the test engineers, your vendor team, pull everybody into a room or a conference room or a virtual room, right? Ask everybody what can go wrong. What can go wrong with your, what are the risks associated with your customer? What are the risks associated with technology? What are the risks associated with resources, the suppliers? Right now, you go one by one item, right? Then, have some kind of a brainstorming session so that we can collect all the potential risks, right? Then you need to categorize the risk based on the impact. Okay, is it going to, once the risk is identified, is it impacting the schedule or a cost or is, the quality? We need to put some tag to that. Okay, so that is very, very important. Once this is done, then we need to do the analysis of those risks and opportunities. Okay, so we need to assign a probability, right? What is the risk is an unforeseen thing which didn't happen yet, right? Because it's they are potential to happen, right? When it's a potential, we want to understand what is the probability of that risk coming and hitting us. Is it on a scale of 1 to 100? Is it a 10%, 15%, 20%, or 80%? Right? We need to identify the probability or determine the probability, and we also need to assess the impact. Okay, even if that risk gets realized, what is the impact? Is it going to be like a $50,000 impact, or is it going to push the project by 1 year? Whatever it is, we need to assess the impact. Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, where is it like impact is going to be high or low, right? So once we assess the probability and impact, we need to use that to determine the risk index value. Okay, so that now we can determine the relative importance, because you may identify hundreds of risks, not everything is important, right? We need to assign the probability and impact so that now we can prioritize them. Okay, similarly, as I told you, we also need to identify the opportunities, right? So we also need to analyze the opportunities to determine which one we should go after, because opportunities doesn't come for free, because sometimes we may have to put some investment to it, right? That's the reason why we need to assess what is the cost benefit analysis. Okay, depending upon that, we have to prioritize those. Okay, now once you identify and analyze the risk and prioritize the risk, the next thing we have to do is we need to develop or identify the risk handling strategy. Again, you identify so many risks. It's not that we are going to mitigate every risk we identify. Okay, some we accept the risk. That means we are not going to do anything. We just wait for it to happen. I'm not taking any action. I may have some contingencies for it, but I'm not really taking any actions proactively. Or we may mitigate, okay? But what I mean by mitigate means you take action either to reduce the probability of risk happening or reduce the impact so that it doesn't impact as much as we anticipated, right? So that is what is mitigate mean. Transfer means, that means you are transferring it to another company or another party. Avoid means you're not, even not even going there. You're not even bidding the project. There's so much risk, I'm not even going there. That is what is avoid means. So we need to determine what is our risk handling strategy is. Right? So depending upon your strategy, then you need to develop some kind of mitigation plans. So do you guys involve in the risk identification at this point of time? Do you get involved at all at you as a scheduler or a controller?
I'm sorry, get involved with what?
Do you guys involve in the risk identification exercises?
The key requirements or identification, no. They're assigned upon project approval. So at that point, they're involved with the project planning process during the development of the PEP schedule and cost control structure.
Yeah, but no, you are a key stakeholder, right? You should also get involved. At least you need to voice your opinion on what are the potential risks and opportunities, right? Because you have a stakeholder, right? You on the project, right?
Yeah, I agree. They should attend the risk assessment so they can provide their feedback from a cost and schedule perspective.
Yeah, sure. Please, going forward, that's one thing which we should start doing. The last one here is, again, risk is not a static in nature, right? Risk is keep evolving. Either, as things change, either risk probability might change, impact may change, or new risk gets added, right? So for that reason, we need to, on a regular basis, either it could be weekly, bi-weekly, right? Whatever is the frequency that is appropriate for the project, we need to monitor and update the risk register or risk and opportunity register. Okay, so those are the changes, and these are the key messages. I kind of put it here with respect to risk and opportunity management. Again, these are the updated processes. One thing which I wanted, the first two are the same, like project planning and tracking process and the PEP plan, because that is where we identify what is our strategy. But this is one thing which I wanted you to be aware. There is a new risk and opportunity register template. Okay, so currently at the at PSEG Long Island, right? If there are any risks, right? We are currently documenting them in the ServiceNow. Okay, but the way the current ServiceNow form is created, we don't have a provision to document the risk handling strategy, right? Similarly, there is no provision to document the opportunities, right? So Ben, the project manager for this project from PSEG side, right? He actually working with the ServiceNow team to make the change. But until then, until that change is implemented, we wanted the project teams to use this Excel-based template to document and track both the risks and opportunities. Okay, I just wanted to highlight that. And I have one more topic which I wanted to cover. Then we have like another 10 minutes or so. The next one is a peer review, very, very important. Okay, again, what is peer review, right? We need to, we generate a lot of artifacts or work products. It could be your requirement document, design document, your schedules, your planning documents, right? So we wanted to make sure that those gets reviewed by your subject matter experts, right? Authors, colleagues, or subject matter experts, so that we can identify if there are any issues, right? So you don't want to, let's take you have a design document, nobody reviewed it, somebody went ahead and implemented, and when you are testing it, you're finding problems. It's too late, right? But rather, once the design document is done, you call for a meeting, get it reviewed by the subject matter expert, so that hey, even before you go ahead and implement it, somebody is critiquing the document to make sure that is correct and it has all the elements, right? So if you do that way, we are actually, embedding the quality into the project development as we go. Okay, so that is where the peer review process comes into picture. Very, very, very important. Okay, so there are 4 important things which comes to which are very important. Okay, first thing is we need to identify the work products are subject to peer review. Okay, every project is different, right? Every project, some project may have 10 modules, another project could be 1 module only, simple project, right? So the level of documentation what they create varies from project to project. So for that reason, very first thing what project manager has to do is he has to identify, hey, what are the documents that are subjected to peer review? Okay, right? You need to identify. Typically, what gets peer reviewed is your requirement document, your design document, the source code, test plan, test procedures, and the planning documents gets peer reviewed. Okay. So then the next thing is we need to plan for peer reviews. Okay. Again, remember I've highlighted this one here. Tasks related to peer reviews are included in your project schedule. Okay. If we need to do a design review or a requirement review or a test plan review, peer review of those, make sure that there is a line item on your project schedule. That way, if you have it on your schedule, that gets done, or at least people will look at it. If not, people forget it, right? So that's the reason why you need to make sure that you as a schedulers, you have a role to play. Make sure that the tasks are accounted for, the peer review tasks are accounted for in your detailed project schedules. And also, peer reviews are, when you say peer reviews, they are very, very, structured. It's not that you're pulling somebody at 5 o'clock in the evening and asking him to review. You need to plan for review. You need to identify who needs to review. Right now, if I'm a subject matter expert, or Nicole is a subject matter expert, or Elandre is a subject matter expert, right? So we need to identify. You need to assign him or her as the reviewer for a given document, and we need to account that in your pre-6 schedule so that they know that needs to be done by them. Right? Very, very important as a scheduler. So you have a very important role to play there. Okay. Once that is done, you do the peer reviews according to the plan. Again, only thing I wanted to highlight here is, it's not just having a task in your project schedule, right? So it's also sometimes, sometimes people schedule a 30 minutes meeting to review 300-page document. Do you think we can review, a 300-page document in 30 minutes? We are not robots, we are not trying to just scan through it and do, because we wanted to review the content to identify if there are any missing elements, right? Or any contradictory in the content the way it is written, right? So you cannot. So you need to see the time allocated for review. Is it appropriate? Okay. Similarly, whenever we are reviewing whenever we are having a peer review, we should never review the actual document in the meeting itself. We should send the documents in advance, okay, a day or 2 in advance. Ask all the reviewers to review offline, and in the meeting we will only discuss the review findings. You should never open the document and go section by section in the meeting. That's not an efficient way of doing peer reviews. Okay. So then the last thing I wanted to cover here is we need to analyze the data. Again, and as I told you right now, hey, if you have the information, hey, how many lines of code we can review per hour, or how many pages, how many design documents, how many pages of a design document you can review per hour, then you can plan your peer reviews accordingly. For that reason, we need to collect the data and analyze the data and use the data when you're planning for peer reviews. Okay, so these are all the 4 key pillars, for the peer reviews. Okay, again, we have written a process for peer reviews. Okay, please go through that. Again, that's available on our EPMO SharePoint. Please go through that. As I told you, there's a peer review process here. Okay, so go through that, familiarize yourself, and and also, as and when you develop your project schedule, right now your schedule also can get peer review. Okay, making sure that we didn't miss any key dependencies, or you didn't miss out any important task, right? You can, once your project schedule gets developed, you can have a peer review of your project schedule too. Okay, and if there are any observations from them, we have an Excel template that can be used to document it. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that. And also we have some checklist for requirement reviews, design reviews, and all that. So that's all I have with respect to the changes we made to the process. Any questions before we, we have like 6 minutes. Any questions, specific questions? It may be on the changes we made to the process, or it could be on the CMMI, or it could be on the SGP process. Any questions you may have, please, bring it up.
I think everyone needs to digest it. I don't think there's major changes to our existing process. They're just some additional enhancements from what I see thus far. Yes. And I don't think that they're going to be an overhaul to the way we do things now. Very,
very, very good point, Nicole. Okay, it's not that we are introducing something drastically different. It is our existing process. We just tweak a little bit here and there just to be compliant with CMMI requirements, right? Again, CMMI requirement is a collection of best practices, right? We are trying to refine the process so that we can improve the things the way we are currently being executed. Okay, again, Nicole, very important thing what you mentioned, right? Okay, it's a lot to digest. Okay, right? So like we spent like like a 1.5 hour, right? Like we started at 2 o'clock, it's almost like 3:30. Like the last 90 minutes we are together to go through a lot of content. I want you to go through, go back after the session, access the SharePoint, digest the information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach us, right? And on top of it, I also wanted to make sure that if you have any questions, right now, we will be having as you can see on this screen, so we will be having a daily, Zoom sessions from 10 to 12 to clarify any questions you may have. Or we will have, in addition to that, we'll also be having some workshops. We take a specific topic, like how to complete a project in a risk log. We can have a workshop. We'll, whoever needs some hand-holding will be there. We help them. Okay, so that's all I have. Ben, I'm sure you have some closing remarks. Before I wrap it up, I just want to send one other thing, right? So we also need to capture the training attendance. I see there are total 29 people. And also we need to collect the training feedback. Okay, so at the end of the session, Ben or Adam, right? Adam Lowe is the organization change management consultant, which we have, our lead we have. So one of them will be sending you a form for you to evaluate the training. Okay, you can assess the quality of the training. Is the duration good? The content delivery is good? Now there are several factors on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. I don't remember exactly. Just make sure that you complete the form, send it back to us so that we can make some refinements how we deliver the content in the future. Okay. With that, I will pass it on to Ben.
Right, and just to add a little more color to that, we really are looking for your feedback. Please be candid. This is your way of communicating back to us, what adjustments we may need to make the training more valuable to you. So please respond. Please be candid. I do appreciate your time today. As Siva said, this is not a one and done situation. This is the training session to introduce you to the changes. The team is going to be here providing support, understanding that during the training session you may not have questions. You may only really start having your questions come to you as you start utilizing the template, start working your way through the changes to the process. And given that, as Siva said, we're going to have a help desk, a daily help desk that you can call into. Team will be here to help you work through templates in case you have an issue that is a little more detailed than what we can cover on the daily help desk. So we be available for workshops. So again, this is your introduction to the changes that we're making, the improvements that we're making, and we will be here to support your team. So if you have questions that come up later, sure, go ahead.
Are you going to be either sending a link to the SharePoint location or the actual deck so people may be able to review, and that tends to stem some questions or direct things that they can forward to you?
Ben, your voice is breaking. I don't know whether it's just me, but to answer your question, Nicole, yes, this training deck will be uploaded and we will be sharing, and you will be provided access to the SharePoint, the SharePoint that was created for the PSEG LI. Sure, you'll get both. Ben, are you?
I don't know what happened. I think his microphone may have died or something, but okay. I did hear you that you're going to be sending out email with the link to people who are attended today, correct?
Sure, yeah.
Alrighty. Is there any other questions or concerns? It's 3:30 and move on to our next calls. Alrighty, everyone.
Good. Very nice.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. And please don't, once you get the feedback, training feedback, don't forget, please, evaluate and send us that. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty.
Take care.
Bye.